President-elect Donald Trump confirming that he is going to use the U.S. military to carry out his mass deportation policy. Trump saying on social media early this morning that reports he'll declare a national emergency are true.
Meanwhile,
we, of course, are deeply concerned about, the President of the United States calling out military inside the United States, where people are peaceful, even if there may be people who are undocumented. But the idea of calling out, the Army into the domestic confines of the United States seems uncalled for and may in fact be unconstitutional and illegal.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I gotta tell you guys, the mainstream liberal media and the Democrats, the woke Democrats, the Democrats who just don't get it, right? They have not learned from the butt whooping that Kamala Harris took during the election that, hey, maybe you guys should get on board with the agenda, right? Get on board with the agenda, or you just won't win, right? You just won't win with the American people because the American people voted for the MAGA agenda, okay? They voted to make America great again. And a cornerstone of the America First agenda is mass deportations, okay? A vast majority of the American people agree with mass deportations. This is what they voted for, okay? And Trump is trying to give the people what they voted for, okay? As he has confirmed that he will, in fact, use the military to mass deport illegal immigrants. Take a look.
This morning, President-elect Trump signaling a major move on immigration, responding true to a post on his social media platform, saying he will declare a national emergency and use military assets for a mass deportation program, a program he pledged to implement during his campaign, which focused in part on immigration and the southern border.
The Republican platform promises to launch the largest deportation operation in the history of our country.
And he's promised to use the military as enforcement in the past.
We must use any and all resources needed to stop the invasion, including moving thousands of troops currently stationed overseas.
Trump's confirmation that he plans on using military assets to conduct mass deportations. Ali Rafa was telling us about how in 2019 and 2018, Trump mentioned doing something like that. But is there any precedent for something as broad-based as using military assets for deportations?
Thanks, Jose. Well, I think the one thing we know is that Trump's going to do everything within the law and perhaps beyond the law. He's going to revert to a 1798 law called the Alien Enemies Act, which has been used several times, but in true acts of war. But the definition is not just declared acts of war. It's also for attempted invasion or predatory incursions, and you can certainly imagine how Trump would expand the definition under this administration. This was used in 1955 when the then President Eisenhower tried to use the military and was barred from that. But in Operation they chose to use National Guard troops as a way of enforcing these laws. And given what we've seen in recent past, Jose, with particularly Republican governors in support of Donald Trump, Kristi Noem comes to mind, where yet a North Dakota governor sending National Guard troops to Texas. So I think the answer is that he will do anything and everything within his power and beyond his power, and certainly test his powers, because this was the first thing he talked about coming down the escalator in 2016, and it's the last thing he talked about in 2020. This is his top priority, Jose.
Which is exactly what we voted for, right? This is what we all wanted, okay? We wanted mass deportations. Now, the mainstream liberal media is going out of their way to try to convince people that, no, this is not what you want. You actually really don't want to deport the illegals, because all these terrible things are going to happen if you deport the illegal immigrants, right? Like, for example, CNN, Jake Tapper is essentially saying that the experts who've been wrong about everything, by the way, I just want to be clear, right? The experts who've been wrong about everything are saying that, well, if you deport the illegals, then we won't have anybody to pick out cotton. And that is going to lead to a rise in grocery prices.
Let's start with you. Farm industry officials and economists tell CNN that if Trump indeed goes forward with this mass deportation plan and rounds up the millions of undocumented immigrants who are working in our agricultural sector, they say high grocery prices are only going to get higher. Obviously getting rid of people who have committed crimes beyond coming into the country illegally is one thing. But deporting people who are paying taxes, keeping the food and agriculture industries running, doing jobs that native-born Americans don't want to do or not willing to do, won't this actually hurt the Americans who are already so frustrated about high prices in grocery stores?
I think a few things. Number one, Donald Trump was elected to do this. He ran on it, made it clear what he wanted to do. The American people voted for it. And so some people are watching this going, thank God, a politician who's planning to follow through on their promises. Number two, there's like 1.3 to 1.6 million illegal immigrants who've already received deportation orders from a court. I think you could start there. Number three, there's another population of people who are violent. You could also go there before you ever get to people who are sort of working in industries. And maybe during the course of all that time, maybe, just maybe, the Congress and the White House could figure something out about how to balance our illegal immigration crisis with the need for agricultural labor. Final point, I don't remember anybody having these kinds of meltdowns when Barack Obama deported 5 million people. It is not uncommon for the executive branch to deport illegal immigrants. It happens in every administration. Obama deported more than most. And I don't remember any of this kind of meltdown, and the crisis has only gotten worse. So I think Donald Trump's doing the right thing, and most Republicans would agree it is a national emergency.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, earlier today, if you haven't seen the video, I highly suggest you guys check it out, featuring Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who is very far left, especially when it comes to this issue of immigration. And he recently came out and announced that Canada is going to do a crackdown on immigration because immigration was resulting in an increase in prices, right? It was resulting in an increase in the price of housing, rent, healthcare, transportation, goods and services that Canadians use, right? Taxpayers pay for, right? He decided that, we're going to have to lower the rate of immigration into the country because it's just too much. Now, he's probably doing this because he's trying to get reelected, right? He's not very popular right now in his country. But my point is this. All the experts claim that this stuff never happens, right? That illegal immigrants or migrants, mass migration is not responsible for an increase in the cost of goods and services and housing and rent and transportation and healthcare. That's not a thing. That's a right-wing conspiracy. Except empirically speaking, we can see in Canada that happened. In fact, Justin Trudeau claimed in his video that they stopped letting in international students at the same rate that they were before. They put in a cap and rent prices fell in some of the cities. Now, again, how does that work? Because the liberal media, the experts, right, told us that this doesn't happen, that this is not a thing. So when these mainstream liberal media propagandists come out here and say things like, well, if we deport illegal immigrants, if we do mass deportations, your grocery prices are going to go up. Why should I believe them, right? Because wouldn't mass deportations mean that there's less demand for food, okay, which could balance out whatever supply effects happen as a result of the illegals being deported, right? Them not being able to pick our cotton anymore, okay? Wouldn't that also be a thing as well, too? Wouldn't you have an effect on the demand side as well, too? It's funny how they don't account for that, right? They just assume that you're going to have the same demand for food as you did before you deported the illegal immigrants, right? Which doesn't make sense because, again, if you're talking about deporting over 1 million people, okay, upwards of 10 million, 20 million, right? We really should be deporting at least 10 million people, right? Let's keep it 100. At least 10 million people should be deported, okay? Now, I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but I'm just saying. That's 10 million less mouths to feed, right? 10 million less mouths to feed. Now, agriculture, farming, a lot of that stuff is automated. Right? And we do have a large amount of people in this country, a significant population of people, men in particular, that are not working. Okay? We have prisoners. We have teenagers. We got plenty of people here that can do those jobs. Also, on top of that, there are going to be a lot of federal bureaucrats who are going to be unemployed because they're going to lose their jobs as a result of downsizing the government. And I think that they would do an excellent job of picking our cotton, right? Picking the crops. Why can't they pick the crops? Okay? So again, I'm not buying into this idea that we will not be able to replace the labor that we lose as a result of mass deportations. I'm just not buying into it. We have too many people in this country that are not working. We can get it done. Absolutely, we can get it done. 100% we can get it done. And if hopefully we don't have any supply issues and the demand drops for food, then hey, we may see a drop in prices due to mass deportations, right? That's what I'm saying, right? That is a scenario that could play out. But the liberal media, they never, ever consider that. They never consider the possibility that prices could drop because we have less people who demand food, right? Again, it's amazing how that works. It's amazing how that works. So with that being said, you have Democrat mayors and governors coming out and trying to stand up to President Trump and Tom Homan by saying that they're not going to cooperate with the federal government and Trump using the military to mass deport the illegal immigrants from the sanctuary cities. Okay, they're doubling and tripling down on wokeness. They're doubling and tripling down against the will of the American people. Take a look.
As you know, Trump has promised that he would carry out mass deportations on day one of his presidency. Your state is estimated to have 250,000 undocumented immigrants. Some Democrats in your state, like Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallegos, say that she wouldn't allow police to be used to carry out this plan. Would you, as governor, allow state police and National Guard to carry out mass deportations?
We will not be participating in misguided efforts that harm our communities, and I've been incredibly clear about that.
So you disagree with mass deportations and the fact that the president-elect says that's what he's going to be working on day one?
Well, I think that those efforts are going to divert needed resources that we need here on these drug interdiction and smuggling and trafficking efforts to keep harm out of our communities. We need those resources here, and the coming here today and seeing this operation firsthand just underscores that working in partnership here is how we can best secure the border.
What would worry you the most, Governor, about mass deportations?
Well, I think the diversion of law enforcement from the work that they do every day to keep our communities safe. People hiding in fear. We saw that under previous state policies here, and it harms communities. It tears families apart, and that's not gonna happen on my watch.
Boston has considered itself a sanctuary city, which, as you know, limits cooperation with some federal immigration laws. President-elect Trump has promised mass deportations after he returns to the White House. How will you respond as mayor of the largest city in the state, the largest city in New England, and a powerful city in this country?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, for the last decade or so, we have had laws on the books. I was actually serving on the city council at that point when we passed the Trust Act. And I think it's important to get a little bit into what exactly that means, because sometimes people use the term sanctuary city to mean a city that is welcoming of immigrants, which of course we are and have always been. And sometimes that is used to suggest that there might be some immunity where criminal actions are you look the other way at and this and that. So in terms of Boston's policy, there's a prohibition on resources and personnel going to enforce civil immigration detainers, meaning Boston Police and other departments cannot cooperate with ICE when it comes to detaining on civil warrants. There's still room for cooperation when it comes to the issues that matter to all of our residents: human trafficking, drug trafficking, cyber crimes. And so just want to assure everyone that when this passed and in the decades since, it has always been about safety. In fact, the ordinance passed with the full support of not only our local leaders, but law enforcement at every level, because we want immigrants to know that it is safe for everyone to be able to feel comfortable reaching out for emergency services, to report a crime, to ask for help, and generally to be part of our community.
Is it fair to say Boston has struggled with the migrant crisis, or is that not fair?
No, I mean, resources are stretched. We are already in a housing crisis, and we know that our shelter system, for example, which the city runs the individual adult shelters, the state runs the family shelters, at the individual level, we have been at winter levels of overcapacity already during the summer, and much of that is because of newly arrived residents.
Already during the summer. Yeah.
One of your predecessors, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, former Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, went so far as to open up City Hall to undocumented immigrants. What will Boston's response be if these mass deportations take place?
Yeah, look, elections have consequences, and the federal government is responsible for a certain set of actions, and cities, no individual city can reverse or override some parts of that. But what we can do is make sure that we are doing our part to protect our residents in every possible way, that we are not cooperating with those efforts that actually threaten the safety of everyone by causing widespread fear and having large-scale economic impact. And then we are providing the spaces to reach out directly to our residents, because the last thing we want is for people who are part of our economy, part of our school system, part of our community and the fabric of our city to feel that all of a sudden they have to retreat into the shadows because of fear that reaching out to city services, whether it's calling 911 when you need it or taking your child to school, those are all city services that have nothing to do with immigration enforcement, and we will continue to protect our residents within those spaces.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing how these Democrats are doubling and tripling down on protecting criminals, right? Because that is what the main function of a sanctuary city is, to protect criminals. They're saying, well, we don't want local and state law enforcement to cooperate with the federal government when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants, specifically illegal immigrants that commit crimes, okay? So if you are an illegal immigrant in Boston or Arizona, okay, some of these Democrat-run places, if you commit a crime in one of these sanctuary cities, they're not going to help Tom Homan and President Trump deport you, right? They're facilitating crime. And the way she tries to justify it is by saying, well, we don't want illegal immigrants hiding in the shadows, afraid to use city services, while saying at the same time acknowledging that the illegal immigrants are using up resources, right? That resources are scarce, which does what? It drives up the price of the goods and services because you have more demand for the goods and services, right? So you have to use taxpayer dollars to pay for more of the goods and services because you have a massive population of people who aren't paying taxes, by the way, coming into the city and using up these resources. But yet they want you to think that, well, if you deport all these people, prices are going to go up, when prices have actually went up as a result of the mass illegal immigration into this country. That's the reality. It's almost as if the things that these people say is the exact opposite of what happens in reality. It's the exact opposite. They'll tell you out of their mouth that, the illegal immigrants are using up a ton of resources. But hey, if we deport them, it's going to have severe economic consequences. How? Please explain. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Because you're telling me that there are severe economic consequences right now with the mass illegal immigration going on in these cities. I don't get it. I don't understand it. These people make me sick with their gaslighting, their lies. These people could work with the president to help their city, but they just choose not to. They're like, nah, we're not going to do it. We're too brainwashed on liberal ideology, right? We don't want to upset the far left. And a lot of these people are like legitimately far leftists. Like they legitimately believe that, no, we should just allow anybody into the city, right? We should just be welcoming towards everybody. Everybody should come in, right? We have unlimited resources. We can share, right? According to Brandon Johnson, okay? There's enough for everybody to eat, except there's not, right? Like legitimately there's not, okay? But hey, I got a feeling that a lot of these liberal cities, these mayors, these Democrats, they're going to have to choose. Do you want federal funding for law enforcement? Or would you rather keep the illegal immigrants? Because if you keep the illegal immigrants, then the federal funding for law enforcement should be stripped. It should be stripped down to the bone. They should not receive a dime Oh, local police, you're not going to help us deport illegal immigrants? All right, cool. We're not going to fund it. We're not going to fund your law enforcement. Let's see how that works, right? Let's see how that works. Let's see how that works. And if that happens, and then all of a sudden you have mass layoffs of police, or taxes have to increase a ton to pay for law enforcement in these liberal cities, guess who the residents are going to blame? They're not going to point the finger at Trump and blame him. No, they're going to blame the Democrats running these cities, because the American people voted for mass deportation. So if you're standing in the way and your city suffers because you don't want to cooperate with the president, you will take the blame. And hey, maybe this is what needs to happen, because a lot of these woke Democrats just got voted out in this election, but we still have a lot of work to do, guys. Across a lot of these liberal cities, you still have woke lunatics running these cities. So maybe this is what needs to happen. Maybe this showdown needs to happen in order to get the rest of these individuals voted out of office. That's exactly what needs to happen. So again, these people want to play games with Tom Homan and President Trump. Fine. There's some Democrats that realize that, hey, I'm not in a position to negotiate. Like Eric Adams, for example, who also met with President Trump at Madison Square Garden during the UFC fight. Okay. He made sure he went up to President Trump and said, thank you. Thank you, President Trump. Right. He understands the game. He gets it. Some of these other people, they don't get it. They got to learn the hard way. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.